Games, Brains A Head-Banging Life. And we've done 10 things we love about them. Now it is 10 things we hate about Pantera. As much as it's easy for us to find things we love about Pantera, it's also very easy to find things to hate about Pantera. Some of it, not their fault. Some of it, completely their fucking fault.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into it now. I started the love, so as always, you can start the hate.
Okay. Where shall I start here without talking purely about racism?
Yeah, I've got some heavy ones as well.
Okay, I'll start off nice and straightforward, really. The early albums.
Yep.
I've never really listened to. I've listened to Metal Magic, I think it's called. That was the one that I tried that made me know not to bother trying anymore. Do you know what I mean? It was that, like, you go, yeah, okay, I'd heard these weren't for me. You're right. But I guess the thing with these early albums that I always kind of questioned, like, is obviously they took a massive U-turn, right? We know they took a massive U-turn. It wasn't like a continuation. There's no way you progress from that to that. Something happened where they decided, this ain't working. What are we going to do? And I guess I always kind of wondered, like, if they really believed in what they did when they formed the band, if that glam stuff was what they loved. And I know that the band members, Dime and all that, you know, he was very good friends with Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
You know, so he kind of grew up in a more rock kind of environment. So I assume they believed in it. And that's why they formed the band like it and they believed in it. And if that is the case, then why did they ditch it? And if they didn't believe in it, then why did they do it? So I just kind of ended this one with, were these great trend killers actually just trend followers? Yeah, oh, look, glam's big in the 80s, we'll do that. Oh, God, look, new metal and all that stuff starting to come through. Let's switch to that. Because, like, generally, if you form a band, I mean, it would have made more sense. Whether I don't care about it, that's the truth of it, because I love what happened afterwards.
Yeah.
They're two different bands, man. I mean, why not break up the glam band? And
It's that, isn't it? It's what you just said there. One of the more puzzling questions, as you just asked it, is that bands can develop and change their sound over time. This was literally a screeching halt, turn the car around and go down to that dirty corner street instead. Like, absolutely.
Well, what happened? You know, did they sit there and go, you know what, guys, we ain't selling albums here. This ain't working out. People are getting into, you know, early 90s, what bands like, I know it wasn't massively popular, but bands like At the Gates are releasing like melodic death metal albums. You know, maybe we go harder and heavier and we try something different. And if that's the case, then the Great Southern Trend Killers, the big fuck yous to music, were just jumping on whatever was popular at the time.
It makes me think of, have you ever seen the IT Crowd?
Yeah.
So there's a point with that when Noel Fielding's character discovers Cradle of Filth for the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm picturing like Dimebag having buried his head in the sand and only listened to Van Halen and Cinderella and people like that, gets given like a fucking At the Gate CD and is just sitting there going, you know, this is what we need to be. I have it as well, but here's the thing, right? I can barely remember ever listening to his albums, but I know I have. So back in the day, we're going way, way back when I was a lot younger, and I found Pantera, lots of other bands, and I was obsessed with basically having an iPod. They're so old. I had a classic. I love my classic, 128 gig classic, and I was obsessed with filling it up with discographies, the entire discography, regardless. And then I had come across, wait, Pantera had 4 earlier albums. All right, I find out that apparently it's not really the same Pantera, and I put them on that regardless. And from what I remember, that was the only time I've ever listened to these albums. You know what? Holy fucking shit! I'm saying it now. We will do soon as we can a track by track for one of these albums. We've got to.
We have to pretend they don't exist.
We can call it Pantera Early Days or something, you know, or P-Antera, like, you know. But yeah, I mean, the early days of Pantera, what the fuck? What the fuck was going on there?
Yeah. Was that one of yours then?
Yeah, we doubled up.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Let's go for...
You're trying to avoid it.
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of them. You know, let's do it. Let's go serious. But this one, I guess you could take this one a couple of different ways. So I should point out before I say anything at all that I am not a racist and all that bollocks that you have to say these days. But so, you know, obviously this is more to do with the racism and the rebel flag sort of things that were levied against them. Okay, I'm not talking about white power. I'm not talking about after Pantera. I'm talking about during Pantera time. Okay, and I would never, none of us would, you know, and as a website, we don't support any of the band stuff that happened afterwards. But Pantera, as far as I remember, and like I said, I was a fan from early days, you know, Cowboys, their debut Cowboys onwards, as we like to say. But they always used the Confederate flag in their imagery. Now, not on their albums, but they were always draped on their stages. Their T-shirts, nearly every Pantera T-shirt you will find was some form of rattlesnake, which is apparently like the animal or the reptile of the South, and the Confederate flag, or what's often called the rebel flag, I think, these days, isn't it? Or the racist flag, depending on how you want to dream it. But I never really kind of fully understood. Like, I understand what happened with Phil afterwards, but I remember back by talking about in the time, there was never really a lot that stood out about the band that was racist. You know, Dimebag would wear he had a Confederate flag flying V guitar.
That's right.
I don't know if you ever saw that picture. And it was a cool looking guitar. And I would look at the guitar and I'd just be like, that's a cool looking guitar. And he was from the south of the United States, not South America, but the south of America. And I never really understood whether they were unfairly judged as racist for flying a Confederate flag, or whether it was maybe just potentially misguided patriotism, because we all know this. You know, we know it happens in everywhere. Like, you know, a person who is racist can fly the St. George's Cross in the UK and totally means it with racist intent. Absolutely. We know that happens, but we also know that there are just generally non-racist football fans and whatever who also fly the flag, and whether it's stupid or not, they do it under a sense of patriotism. Often historically bred, you know, but that's just the way that it is. And I always kind of wondered, like, because, you know, Dimebag in particular, there were never really anything ever levied against him. He was never allegation, but he always had the Confederate flag. And I guess what I kind of get annoyed about a little bit is that Pantera imagery, more so now because of everything that's happened, but definitely back at the day, was often deemed as kind of metal for white guys. But because of things like the Confederate flag, but I never fully understood, and maybe it's just because I was young, I never fully understood, or even to these days, that actually meant racism. I always just assumed they were quite proud of where they came from. And that was their flag. But yeah, so I don't know, it's a weird thing to hate. It's not necessarily a hate about Pantera, but it's a hate about the situation around Pantera.
We double up on this. I mean, this is always going to be a difficult subject, so I'm gonna try and add my 2 cents in regards to that. And I wrote 3 words: Southern flag bollocks.
Oh, so, I wrote more.
I mean, that's my notes. So to kind of go into. So you said the important word that is for me, and it's youth. Now, when I remember Pantera back in the day, the Southern flag, the Confederate flag, the rebel flag, whatever you want to call it, meant nothing to me. I was aware of its existence. I was aware of its connotations, but certainly not as much as I am as an adult now. And I certainly understand it to such a degree, right, that for many years, and this was ended a couple of years ago, I had a Pantera T-shirt that was like a wicked design with a skull and 2 guitars crossing in front of it. But on the guitars was the Confederate flag. And a couple of years ago, I looked at it, and I can't remember what prompted, but I remember going, I'm not going to wear this again because of what it might make people think of me. So I completely understand that. But I never associated it because I was young and I didn't know as much and so on. And I've always wondered and thought this. Pantera were young. They were proud of where they came from, just like many people around the world. Good God, look at our own country right now and Brexit, for example. You can be called a racist because you don't like the European Union. Do you see what I mean? Like, that's how mad things have got to a certain degree on parts of that. And I don't want to get off the topic here. What I'm saying is, because you're proud of where you come from doesn't automatically make you a racist. And I feel like that's what we do a lot now. I think now what we're doing with Pantera in particular is we're looking at stuff when they were 18, 19 and stuff like that, and proud of where they come from and standing up and saying, look, we're from the South and we're proud of that. People go, now, oh, well, that was clearly racist because they flew the Confederate flag. And it's like, that's not necessarily fair.
Applying kind of modern standards to something from 30 years ago.
Yeah, it's a current difficult problem we have in this entire world regarding. We're not talking about a lot of things. I know it's such a difficult subject, and it's a scary one to even talk about on video that I'm now willingly going to put up on YouTube. We completely understand it. You will not see us supporting in any way, shape, or form. What Phil would later do is something that rankles us both, that it's going to be mentioned in a bit. So, and that never helped matters. That's the thing. If that hadn't, I feel like if that incident hadn't been happened, there's a problem is you had that from Pantera back in the day, and then you had the current stuff from the guy that used to be in Pantera. People, you put the two together, and even though there's 20 years between them, that's what fucking ended up happening. So for me, the Southern Flag Bollocks, I think, is really something to hate, as you said, not about the band, but how it can be twisted and turned. Yeah. And it, in my opinion, certainly didn't mean what it was, because at no point, as well, you said it already, at no point have I ever looked at Pantera from the old days and got any indication that there was racist intent on that. Yeah.
Always, for me, they were angry at people.
Everyone, yes.
Not racist, people. I actually weirdly don't have that main one in there, but only because I felt like if I did, I would just have all 10 about it.
Right.
So what I did is I said, right, you know what? It's about Pantera. Pantera were gone by then. So I'm going to not omit it. We've mentioned it. And, obviously we stand against it. My next one leads directly on from where we were. I guess I probably cheated by stripping this out a little bit because I could have just included it. And I guess it's just what that means to me now as a Pantera fan. Mm-hmm. You know, I've always been a Pantera fan. I'm still a Pantera fan. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm a Phil fan.
Yeah.
I'm not, just for that. You know, I've got a Pantera flag behind me. I love the band. I love those 4 or 5 albums. But what it is now, like you just sort of suggested with modern society, you know, if I was to come out and say I was pro or anti the EU, that means I'm now labelled as either non-racist or racist.
Yeah.
And really that's what it's become with Pantera, where I don't think I would ever wear one of their shirts with the Confederate flag on it anyway.
Yep.
Now, because of modern society.
Yep.
But also there is an element of almost having to prefix your sentence when you say, I like Pantera with, I'm not racist, but I like Pantera. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like you almost have to pre-justify it. And I fucking hate Phil for making it that way.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's such a weird feeling because I love Phil, Pantera Phil, and I hate him so much for making it the way. But I almost feel like if somebody would say to me, name like some bands you love, I say like, oh, I like Metallica, I like this, I like that. I'm not racist, but I also like Pantera. Do you know what I mean? He genuinely tarnished the band's legacy for me, and it infuriates me.
Yeah.
But also it angers me that a lot of people, whether fans of the band or detractors, and also the media, cannot separate the two, the man from the band. You know, if you like Phil Anselmo, you're a racist. If you don't, you must hate Pantera. And actually, it's not that exclusive. No. I love Pantera. I dislike Phil.
Yeah.
And that's the fact of it. But you know, it's almost like a guilt thing now, isn't it? You know, that stupid thing where you go up to somebody and be like, oh, I'm not being funny, but you know, or I'm not being rude, but you look like a prick. You know,
it's that fucking butt in it.
Yeah, it's that butt. The minute you chuck that butt in there, and that's what you almost have to do now. You got to let's go out there and go, yeah, I'm fucking Pantera fan. Whoa, metal. Because then you think like, oh, people are going to think like, yeah, I want to go out and fight different races, but I don't. That's like the music. So you go, I'm not racist, but I'm a Pantera fan.
Yeah, I mean, well, I echo everything Brendan said. You made a very strong point. I was actually going to talk about Phil and his idiot ways overall, but I'm actually going to change it into something that you triggered as you were talking there. And we're going to talk about fans now for my next one. And it's mainly the fan base, a certain level of fans, or who were fans of Pantera once, or people who were fans of metal, have decided, right, in regards to Dimebag, that Dimebag was almost debasing himself. Because here's the thing. You hate Pantera, but you're still like, Dimebag's the best. And it's almost like he was debased himself by being Pantera, so much better than Pantera and stuff like that. He fucking was the core Pantera. you know, but there's this attitude and thought process, almost like he's up there, the rest are down here. And that's why. And then it kind of started as well with Vinnie Paul when Vinnie Paul died. And it feels like come the end, Pantera, it won't be about Pantera anymore. And they'll all be individual as fantastic people. And Phil will be the sole person responsible for Pantera and everything that Phil has done since. Because Phil is the person you hate because of the shit he's done. And of course, I hate him for that. But let's not forget, Dimebag Darrell, Vinnie Paul, they are Pantera. They are.
Yeah.
They'll join later.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And it's also like, it kind of connects in as well as that. Nobody ever, or not that I've seen, people don't tend to levy the same sort of racist accusations against Rex, Vinny, or Dimebag.
Nope.
And those three guys were more than happy to play alongside Phil in a band for the best part of a decade.
Yeah.
And I'm being careful what I say because I don't want this to sound like I'm suddenly defending Phil and Selma or not, because I've hopefully made my feelings clear on Phil. But it's weird that, Pantera can be levied a racist band because of Phil and Selma, but they were a band of brothers.
Yep.
And, if Phil was genuinely racist throughout his whole time of Pantera, and that's why he shaved his head and whatever anyone can latch onto now as an excuse for it, which is probably just shaved his head because his hair was fucking going or something like that, then it's likely that all of the band were.
Yes.
And they were okay with it.
Yeah.
But we don't really believe that. No one really believes that, So, yeah, I don't know. It's sucky, isn't it?
It's like, it's as simple as this. We're brothers. If I was or you were a massive racist, I would know. It's not like you can keep that hidden, and it would have some influence in some way or another. And let's not forget this. No one forced Dimebag Darrell to put a Southern flag on his guitar, did he? He chose to do that. So Levy et al. Not one.
Yeah.
When we talk about this, it's very important. We are not talking about what Phil did a couple of years ago. That is still resonating with us today, to the point that an artist we adored once upon a time can never ever be looked at the same.
But this is exactly what my point earlier on was. What we're trying to do here, and what we're doing successfully, I think, is we are separating man from band.
That's what
this is 10 things we hate about Pantera. This is not 10 things we hate about Phil and Selma.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that,
we could probably do that.
Let's move on to
a
specific thing, and I'm going to go to the fans again. And this is the certain type of fan base that turns their nose up at Pantera and goes, that's metal for meatheads. They're turning the nose up. That's metal for meatheads. You're stupid for liking Pantera. What, you just like stompy metal, do you? And that's it. The fan base that thinks they're better than you because you might happen to like Pantera.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to leave one then because I kind of touch on that one in a minute. But I do have one about Pantera and Phil kind of fanboys and detractors generally. Because I do think, and this does happen a lot, and I think we've had this on a fair few bands actually in our top 10s, but Pantera are a fucking big one for this, and that is that toxic fan base, that no middle ground.
Yeah.
Pantera are not allowed criticism. It's quite straightforward that, if you're a Pantera fan, Phil's a god, Dimebag's a god, Vinny's a god, Rex is cool. And that's kind of how it's sort of deemed. And don't fucking dare say otherwise.
Yes.
God damn it. And if you don't like them, sorry. And the other side of it then, is as bad. Where Dimebag's overrated, Phil's a racist thug, Vinny's an average drummer.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, they were in Damage Plan, for Christ's sake. How shit is that? Do you know what I mean? And there is like no middle ground. It's that whole Marmite thing, isn't it? But the fans on this side of it, you see this shit, like, when it went down with like Rob Flynn and all that sort of stuff. And you saw the worst of metal fans. The Pantera defenders came out in force. The Pantera destroyers came out in force.
Yeah.
And there's no fucker in the middle, or very few of us, who are just like, no, Pantera cool. Again, the whole separation thing. But yeah, that's a proper good example of a toxic fan base.
more and more in real life in the world now, it feels like we're football teams. All we do is support football teams. We have with our bands, and like it doesn't matter if they're losing and at the bottom of the table, you support them through thick and thin. And instead of sometimes being like, look, this isn't going, this is a bit shit on that kind of thing, and so on. And I hate that. And it applies to a lot of bands in metal. But you are right. If you say to me, name me 5 bands with toxic fan bases, I'm pretty sure Pantera might be one of the first that jumped in the mind. Where be like, I wouldn't want to have a conversation with anyone but family and friends about Pantera. I wouldn't want to do it.
That's the real challenge there, isn't it? Go on a Pantera forum and say Pantera is shit. See what happens, man.
Another thing we hate in our bands, and it's silly really to a degree because we already talked about how Pantera would burn out anyway. But ultimately, there's nothing more depressing and horrible as a band when you find out everyone really hates each other, or at least 2 people hate each other to such a degree, and they're falling out left, right, and center, and they're exploding in an inferno. And then later, no one says anything good about each other, and then someone, it's just riffs and falling out, man. It fucking sucks. And this is a band with a fucking history of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got the same thing. Yeah, it always sucks when you hear your little band of heroes don't even really like each other.
Yes.
Pantera's case, it went way past dislike and actually came across like pure fucking genuine hatred, like massively, especially between Vinny and Phil.
Yeah, to the fucking media about each other.
Yeah, and I mean, eventually they called it a day, obviously. But even as far back as the Trendkill album, it was already destroyed. They'd already fallen out. Phil recorded his vocals completely separate from the rest of the band, and then sent them over by email to put it for whoever the producer or whatever to stick it all together. And it just sucks. It sucks when your heroes fall apart like that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Okay, well, on that front then, 2 out of 4 of the band are now dead. Now, obviously, Dimebag died a long, long time ago, but obviously in the last couple of years we lost Vinnie Paul. And that in itself is something to hate, particularly the manner that Dimebag, more than Vinny, died. I mean, shot on stage. It's an incredible, story. But I think the saddest thing of that is it gives no opportunity, particularly with Vinnie Paul being dead now as well. It gives no opportunity to, and I'm not talking about the band. This is not about a reunion of the band. I'm talking about people that once worked, loved each other, played together. It gives them no opportunity to reconnect. As they get older and wiser and maybe more reflective on their life, they might look back and think, you know what, I want to bury that hatchet and grind that axe for a long time, that kind of thing. And there's no sorry. There's no opportunity for them to do that now. It's simply put, Phil and Rex haven't had a problem with each other as far back as I can remember. The issue is always, as Brendan already said, between Phil and Vinny. And
that's what it is. And Dimebag always just got pulled into it because at the end of the day, Vinny's his brother.
So that's it. Yeah, you were never going to get a happy story, sitting down and having a drink. They're in their 50s and discussing what went wrong and how their lives have done this and so on. It's not going to happen.
No, that's very true. It's very nicely put. I had a similar thing, but I didn't kind of look at it as quite a nice way. I was more selfish. And that was just purely that I never got to see them. I never will. I kind of, we spoke about it before. We know there's been all this, maybe Zakk Wylde can play Dimebag's part and don't want it to happen. It's not Pantera.
Yeah.
But I guess what I really, really wanted, and like obviously connects into your wanting that if they could have maybe, I don't know, being a bit more sober, a bit cleaner, maybe they could have reconnected.
Mm-hmm.
I could have lived with seeing Phil on stage with one of the Abbott brothers.
Yeah.
I think Dimebag was dead, but Phil on vocals, whoever, if Rex was about, great on bass, Vinny on drums, and then somebody on guitar, I could have kind of lived with that. Now it's tainted forever because whenever Phil does it, while I want to see it, and fingers crossed, Bloodstock will go ahead next year, and we'll see Phil and some of the Illegals do some Pantera stuff. It's just that now. It's just a cover band now because there's no Abbott brother on stage, but there's also no go ahead from the Abbott brothers. There's no Vinny saying, "Yeah, I'm behind Phil going out there and doing that." So that's kind of been lost. Yeah. And for me, I was a fan for such a long time, and during the heyday of going to see shows, and I guess it kind of hurts a little bit more. I've kind of harped on about this for years now, but obviously I had a ticket in hand. Back in the heyday of when you only had to pay £60 to go and see a festival. Yeah. And I was going to see Tattoo the Planet It was in 2001.
Yeah.
It was Slayer, Pantera co-headlining, and weirdly, not that I knew back at the time, but Static X was one of the support bands.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously this all kind of happened. This was Twin Towers time. It's actually quite like a lot happened for me metal-wise around then, because I was meant to be going to that and then going to see Machine Head about 3 days later.
That's right.
And that didn't go ahead, but Machine Head still came, and that's when they recorded Hell Alive. You know, but yeah, it was just, I guess, obviously the fact that I never got to see them fucking sucks.
Yep.
The fact that I will never get to see what I class as them, which means Phil and an Abbott brother, absolutely sucks even more. And then it just gets hit home a little bit harder, the fact that I was like a day away from going, you know, or 3 days away from going with ticket in hand. I'm going to finally see Pantera.
Yeah.
You know, and then damn terrorists.
Yeah, I mean, I have got the selfish one as well. Obviously, I've never seen them live either. I never even got close to seeing them live, and I never will. But tying into that as well, you talked about, like, you know, all right, you might get Phil Anselmo and the Illegals doing Pantera, and it will feel like a cover band to a degree, except there's the vocalist. And we've said in Bloodstep videos, you know what, we'll take it because it's the best we're going to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also hate the fact that, I guess I kind of hate the fact that no matter what happens at that show, is it will never feel quite sincere. So, you know, let's say they're playing a song and up comes a strong Dimebag riff that you kind of recognize. Or let's say Phil decides he wants to give a sort of shout out, like, you know, to the guys that were in the band and stuff like that. I think I'd stand there and be like, don't know how sincere he's being here, whether or not he's just doing it. And I think that kind of problem as well. And so it's not just seeing Pantera live. It's literally, I don't even see what Phil will do as Pantera either.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, this is depressing.
It's so depressing. Let's try and find a way to cheer this up a little bit. Okay. All right. Let's go for... All right. This is maybe not an exact quote from Brendan.
Go on.
So I did kind of write in brackets, or so it could be said. Realistically, you know, my mature self can look back on Pantera as simplistic bro metal.
Yep.
Pantera... This is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, so Pantera fans, please don't fucking lynch me. But Pantera were the five-finger death punch of the 90s.
Ooh,
Commercial enough, overproduced, simple metal made for gym goers to stand in front of mirrors flexing their triceps, biceps, or some other fucking sector. Okay, I don't really mean that, but it was definitely a simpler style of music that was almost pop-like in structure in comparison, say, when you hold it up against some of the more complex black metal and progressive metal that was coming out of the same era. There you go. Now, remember, I do love Pantera, so please don't lynch me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can argue that point. You know, if you go back and you look at some of the albums, say, I don't know, 1991, 92, you know, when their first couple of albums were coming out, was also timed when At the Gates were releasing really, really strong melodic death metal. There was a lot of Scandinavian black metal coming out in the early 90s that was obviously not anywhere near as popular as it is these days.
Yeah.
So it kind of just, you know, a lot of it went under the radar. But you go back to those 90s, bands like Sepultura albums coming out, you know, even into that sort of stuff. When you hold up something like the song Walk against some of these songs like Territory, Sepultura, you can easily argue that as much as I love Pantera, it was certainly dumbed down, sort of more simple metal.
Yeah, but I think, you know, we're fans of all styles of black metal, and sometimes that dumbed down metal, as you call it, is what you need to hear. And it, you know, I couldn't spend my life listening to progressive metal or post black metal or black metal. Like that variation, I love. So sometimes Pantera is refreshing.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Yeah. I think the main diss I might get killed in therefore is calling them the five-finger death punch of the 90s.
I do like that though. It is a fair point. Yeah. Walk. If I never hear that song again, I will die happy. I am done with that song. I'm done with it. It's an instant skip for me. I have no feelings about it anymore beyond I don't want to. It's not that I hate it. It's not about hating the song. It's simply that is fucking one of my most overplayed tracks in my entire life. Not just because of me, because of TV and radio and stuff like that. So I'm more than happy to never hear it again. And I hate the idea, right? It hasn't happened to me yet. It's happened to me with other bands like Metallica, where I've had someone stranger, always at work, who normally it's a contractor, who come in and they'd be listening to music or whatever, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, what's this?" Oh, and I'd be like, "Oh, it's the one that always stands out is the Metallica one."
Yeah.
And it's the whole, "Oh yeah, I like that song in the Sandman," and my soul just dying a bit. And it'll happen with Pantera. I'll be listening to it, and it'll be something like I'll be listening to Set Great Summer Trendkill or Cowboys from Hell, one of the less popular albums. And I know it's going to happen. Someone's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of Walk," and I'm just that'll be it. I reckon I'll snap and I'll choke them to death and just be like, "You're talking to me? You're talking to me?"
Walk on home, boy.
Yes. But yeah, fuck Walk.
Yeah. It's just a simple fact of music, unfortunately. A truly amazing, brilliant song doesn't have a lifespan.
That's it. Yeah.
But there are some good songs out there that do have a lifespan, you know, and Walk is one of them, to be honest. And for me, not as much, but Cemetery Gates is another now as well, which I have not. If I'm listening to Cowboys from Hell, I tend to not listen to that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so huge impact, very few releases, really, if you look at it over the grand scheme of things. Now, this does depend on how you look at things. So you can do this two ways, right? So considering their size and scale, right, that's the most important thing. I mean, Pantera are probably the closest to ever come to being another Metallica, I think, in terms of size and scale.
I think they're on the trajectory for it, yeah.
Yeah. And this is where you can do this two ways, right? Obviously, I'm trying to fill out a list here, so I've gone a certain way. So, but really, Pantera released 9 studio albums, and 5 of them were shit.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, we can then all go down the route and we pretend they started at Cowboys, and then they had 4 or 5 great albums. But that's not actually a fact. They didn't. As a band, Pantera released 9 albums.
Yep.
The first 3, is that right? Or 4 were shit. Then there were 4 great ones, and then there's one that you know, it's not as bad as the first 4, but it's still not a great album. And actually, over the course, it's amazing that they got to the size and scale they did, if you did take them as a whole.
Oh yeah,
you know,
that's I 100% agree. That return on and we have to do it, because whether we like it or not, those fans on 9 albums, 4 great albums out of 9. I'm sure that many people would happily take that, considering the impact of those 4 albums. But I think it's very important. I don't have this, but I have this one album. And I think what often kind of gets glossed over, and you see it with fans right now when they talk about Pantera, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, great album," and then reinventing the steel. And you've got that thing, right? And it's like, it's Pantera Saint Anger, where the hardcore fan base will say, "No, man, it's got good songs on it. It's got good songs on it. We'll grind that axe for a long time." And it's like, yeah, that's an all right song. Like, it's an all right song. That's it, though. And they'll do that hyper defensively. It's like, you know, it's okay to turn around and go, it's just not a good album.
Yeah.
And that's what really still is. It's not a good album.
Yeah. Yeah, I have it as well. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I'm a massive Pantera fan. I know every fucking word of every song on those 4 albums. You know, I love them. And I would have tried this album to death. I promise you that. When this album was announced coming out, I was excited. You know, I would listen to every song a multitude of times. And if you would have asked me now to name 4 songs of that album, I don't think I could.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing with it. I could probably do the whole track list from every one of the other albums, one in the right order, and get roughly the length of it right. You know, but with this one, you know, I got probably 3, maybe 4 that I can do, and then I'm like, oh, I don't even remember what was on it, because it was that fucking forgettable, to be honest with you. I don't hate it, but it isn't a good album, and it isn't even okay either, really. The band were done before this, relations were torn, and it feels forced. It feels forced. It doesn't feel genuine. You know, and
also got a wanky front cover. Never forget that.
The jumping through the fire thing.
Yeah, fucking horrendous.
And you know, I don't know. I guess a little bit of me kind of wishes, if they were going to go out, that they went out with Tranquil.
Yeah.
You know,
it would have been.
We ignore the middle and we just go, you know what, Pantera arrived. Sorry, we ignore the beginning. We say Pantera arrived in the 90s. They hit us in 8 years with Cowboys, Vulgar, Far Beyond Driven, Great Southern Tranquil, and then disappeared into the ether. Yeah.
Wow. What an impact that is.
Yeah.
Well, on my last one then, And it's a funny one because for a long time I kind of didn't. I was on the other side of the fence here. But when people talk about great Pantera albums, you know, they talk Vulgar Display of Power. That's it. That's the first thing that comes in to everyone's fucking mind. Vulgar Display of Power. Then probably Cowboys from Hell. Then you might get the odd nerd going, yeah, Far Beyond Driven. But Great Southern Trendkill. And I think because of its release, so what was it? Where was it? May 7th, 1996. So we were now hitting the early, real strong part of nu metal days. So Korn and all of that. So I think the Great Southern Trendkill was effectively, while popular with Pantera fans, was not picked up in the same way, particularly as well. It was angry, very not for the children kind of thing. So I think the Great Southern Trendkill, and I had to rethink this because I talk to you a lot about Pantera, and you tell me a lot. You love this album so fucking much. It's your favorite Pantera album. I think I started to believe that everyone felt that way. That it was more popular than it was.
I'm in a minority.
Exactly that. And it's strange because when you look at the track listing and you remember the songs on it, this album should be getting way more love than it does. I get it doesn't have the hitters of Vulgar. It doesn't have your Walks, and it doesn't have your Cemetery Gates from Cowboys, and so on. But songs like The Great Southern Trendkill, Warner, Drag the Waters, 13 Steps to Nowhere, Suicide Note Part 1 and 2, Tens, Living Through May, Floods, The Underground in America, Sandblasted Skin. It's a very strong fucking album. It's strange that it doesn't get that love, even from Pantera fans, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know why. That's the truth of it. I always kind of felt that, I don't know, maybe it was because the people that got into Pantera were into Pantera because of that kind of cleaner commercial walk style music. And this is quite gritty, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, so much so that it's also my last one.
Well, before you go into it, I just want to quickly throw you out some of the reviews, just the star ratings and scores that were given to it at the time by some of the major magazines.
Yeah.
So AllMusic gave it 3 out of 5. Arts Direct gave it 5 out of 5. BBC Music gave it a favourable review. Chronicles of Chaos 9 out of 10. Entertainment Weekly, a C+ album. Los Angeles, C+.
Some magazine was reviewing it using school grades.
Yeah, Entertainment Weekly, a big fucking American name. LA Times gave it 2 out of 4.
The fuck is with these scores?
We stuck with 10 because it was 10, you know? Rolling Stone gave it 2 out of 5. And Pitchfork gave it 7.7 out of 10.
Well, that's random as fuck as a term.
It is really. It shows a great divide between...
But you know what it does show as well, though, is that the things like, I can't even remember the ones you came out with, but the bigger publications, the ones that were maybe would touch not so much on the underground of metal, but more on the mainstream of rock and metal, are the ones that scored it lowly.
Yeah.
You know, like the last one that you said there, I can't remember the name of it, but the very last one that you said there, that's Rolling Stone.
2 out of 5, yeah.
You know, so these people, these publications have latched onto Pantera due to their popularity through things like Walk.
Yep.
And then when it comes out with an album that's maybe more truer to metal, they can't handle that shit. That's why they don't cover fucking At the Gates and, you know, Mayhem and all that stuff. There's a reason why they don't. They give every album like that, you know, a 1 out of 10 or 5 or 3 or 3.5 or whatever the fuck they do with their scoring.
E-.
You know. But for me, like I said, my last one is it's essentially identical to what you said, and it's just the fact that how criminally underrated the Great Southern Trendkill is. You know, it annoys the hell out of me. It really does. Like for me, it isn't just their best album; it's actually way ahead, I think, of their other albums. I think their other albums are fantastic, but I think this is their pinnacle. You know, I think they reached a peak here, and it's weird that they did, because it was while they were collapsing. But maybe that's why, you know, because at this time Phil was trying to get off of his addiction, you know, or drug addiction and alcohol addiction, and it was like one of the, I mean, I know there's been a fair few of them, but it was one of the Phil's trying to become clean episodes.
One of his demons, yeah.
You know, and then that's why, you know, things like Suicide Notes Part 1 and 2 exist, and I guess it reflects quite accurately the way they were then. You know, it feels raw, it feels more emotional, it is definitely a darker album.
Yeah.
You know, it's much you kind of feel like not the chaos, like, because you always had that aggression beforehand, but with this one, you felt like they're not all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I loved it for it. It was like just I don't think for me there's an average song on the album. I think for me that album, if I had to review that album today, hearing it for the first time, it would have been 10 out of 10. I'm pretty sure of that. You never really know, but that's what what I think. And it just really annoys the hell out of me when people talk about Pantera, and it's always, you're right that sometimes you'll get that guy who'll try and be the clever fucker and be like, oh, Far Beyond Driven's my favorite album. He doesn't mean it though. What they all argue about is who prefers Cowboys over Vulgar. Yeah. That's all people care about. And then sitting there at the back end of that high time is their best work.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's a constantly fascinating subject, and it will never change. There you go. There's our 10 things we hate about Pantera. Let us know some of yours in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?